And we conclude with Bruce Burtch, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications for the American Red Cross Bay Area. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Art. Nice to be here.
You know, I think that the Bay Area is condemned to the fact that they lead such a great life. It's such a great quality of life. No matter, even if you're poor or you're rich, just stepping outside, you don't get the sense of danger. Even though there was an earthquake recently.
Absolutely.
The kinds of dangers that exist right now that you're dealing with are more frightful for people on the East Coast, like terrorist attacks and so on, or New Orleans, like Katrina and hurricanes. What's your reaction when you try to go out and get people to feel prepared and be prepared?
Well, it's obvious that everyone in the Bay Area knows that we have the 62% chance of an earthquake within the next 60 years or 30 years if you listen to the USGS. And that statistic just sort of flows right by people. I don't think they really get that an earthquake can be imminent. What we find out is when we go out there and talk to people, we're trying to simplify the message because there are a lot of people that are in denial about the fact that this is really going to happen. Our concern is not just about the big one, but we respond with the American Red Cross to over 2 fires a day in the Bay Area. So these are major emergencies to the families that are affected. A lot of times they're apartment fires, floods like we had in Marin and Sonoma County last year. There's a lot of things that are going on around the Bay Area that we're trying to get people prepared for, not just
Wait a
the
minute
big
now,
one.
how do you prepare people for the smaller apartment fire or a flood? And I'm not saying a massive flood, but let's say a localized flood. What do you mean by that?
Well, what we're trying to do is get people to realize that they may be evacuated from their home. So our program right now is a 3-step program, is to get a kit, get some sort of a disaster kit, to make an emergency plan, and to get some form of training. So in that case, people that might be evacuated from their home, they may not have their family together or their spouse or their partner in the same place. So to know where you're going to be. So what we recommend is that they have someone outside of the area. Maybe it's in Sacramento, maybe it's in Cleveland, Ohio, but a relative that they can contact. It's very important in this kind of situation that families and groups living together understand where everybody is.
Yeah, now I want to get to that. Let's talk about that as a major disaster. But now, I've always wondered, for example, we read about a fire in a neighborhood in San Francisco or Oakland, and we hear that 26 people were made homeless.
Correct.
And probably they were people who were established. What happens to them? We never hear about them 10 months later, 5 months later. What happens to, do they manage to get back to where they were, or do any of them fall through the cracks?
Not with us for the most part. I mean, you're never 100% good at everything.
Do you track them constantly?
We track them. I'll give you an example. There was a fire at a Keys condominium complex in Walnut Creek last year where 57 people were displaced. We were going to open a shelter for that, and then we were able to find hotel rooms for most of those people, and then a lot of friends and family were able to pick them up. So we were ready to go in immediately within a few hours' notice and set up a shelter. And then everyone that comes through the Red Cross becomes a client of ours. No confidential information is taken, no questions are asked. All we want to know is, what did you lose? Do you have your family members together? What you have plans? Can you go to a relative? Do you have a friend? If not, would you like us to put you up in a hotel or a motel?
And what happens to them?
We stay with them. We stay with them for a while. Now, usually they'll have about 5 to 6 to 7 days maximum under Red Cross care. A good example is the evacuees that came out of Katrina. They came about 2,500 people from Katrina to the Bay Area. The Red Cross provided a lot of, and not just the Red Cross, but the Salvation Army and the Southern Baptist Convention. A lot of people surrounded them to give them a lot of services. And then we actually set up what was called a long-term recovery program. Red Cross is best known for being sort of a first responder,
Correct.
to be there with mass care, shelter, etc. But in situations like that, we have set up long care recovery. But we will stay with them to the length of our kind of what we can do legally.
And how long is that?
Usually it is financially between 5 and 7 days,
Okay.
but then that can be different in each case.
Let's go to the bigger picture here that involves San Francisco. And let's talk about Katrina with relation to San Francisco, and then we can talk about terrorist attacks. You know, everyone try to place the blame for Katrina on different people. When the Red Cross looks at Katrina, did you yourself go through self-examination and ask, what could we have done better and where did we fail?
Absolutely.
Where do you think the Red Cross failed in that hurricane experience?
Well, before I talk about the failures, let me talk about the positive. The first and foremost was that was 90,000 square miles. That was a situation, an event, a tragic event.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt you.
Please.
Not that you have the responsibility,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right, no,
It's
I
not
appreciate
the-
you.
I mean, the government does, but I
But
don't want to put you on.
we share the responsibility.
But I'm just saying, you may be disappointed that you didn't react in a certain way, and you've made changes. So I don't feel that you're responsible. I want to know what you learned from it.
There were a lot of lessons that came out of that. One was the fact that the first group that's going to respond almost in any disaster of that magnitude, not even close to that magnitude, that was 11 times larger than anything we'd ever done in our history, is the faith-based community. And we recognized that we needed to build stronger partnerships with the faith-based communities, not only throughout the Southwest and the Gulf Coast region, but also throughout the entire United States and here in San Francisco. That was a big lesson that was learned. Another one was to have large stockpiles of food, cot, shelter, some of the things that we do as part of our services, closer to major metropolitan areas that would be susceptible to some sort of a hurricane or disaster, such as the Gulf Coast. So we have deployed and are building warehouses around the United States, and there was an allotment of $80 million to supply those warehouses with food. There were a lot of things that came out of that. I think that partnerships would probably be the one thing I'd really like to underline. We have here in the Bay Area over 500 partnerships. This is a very progressive chapter. We're on the leading edge of a lot of things that are being done throughout the Bay Area.
You've networked that many people?
We have 500 partnerships. That's networking out into hundreds of thousands of people.
Have you done drills in San Francisco testing that network? Let's say a major event. Have you tested your own systems, and forget about the public, but your own
We test
system?
them constantly. For instance, coming up in September, there is a earthquake, there's an airport drill that's being done. We're also doing simulated earthquake drills probably about twice a year. But there's one coming up in September that's going to be at the San Francisco airport. And all of the different emergency agencies that would respond to an airplane that's coming in that may crash, or using the airport as a facility to shelter people. So we'll be out there, the Salvation Army will be out there, the Office of Emergency Services will be out there. There's a statewide program called Golden Guardian that we're very much a part in.
Now you have, again, you're bringing up now the government's preparedness programs. We have one, you have county, you have city, you have federal. I mean, how did that all get together in a short time under pressure? We're talking about hours after a disaster. You know, there's a lot of criticism of Katrina, but who's coordinating all those groups into almost an army with directedness?
And it's a very good question, because we all have very separate but integrated roles in a situation like that. The Red Cross is mostly about shelter and care for the people that are affected by a disaster. The OES, the Office of Emergency Services, for instance, example, the Southern Baptist Convention have they have kitchens that can serve 20,000 people that are portable, that can be moved around the country. The OES has different policies and procedures that they bring in from the federal government. And so we work with them. That's why we do these drills. When we do these drills, we are integrating those 2, 3, or 4 major organizations together.
See, I don't want to alarm people, but first of all, the last earthquake was not a big earthquake. It really wasn't. It was really
creative.
it was really confined, and injuries were confined.
It was very localized.
But we're talking about, if we're talking about a Katrina-level disaster in San Francisco Bay Area, earthquake, terrorist attack with radiological, you know, where people are now panicking. Radiological means, and there was a scare last weekend in New York, and this is the dream of all the terrorists, is to ignite one of these radiological bombs because of the panic it causes. What's going to happen when you have that feature of panic, the overwhelming effect of a disaster where there doesn't seem to be localized in one pocket, let's say Hayward, you know, and the Hayward fault, but it affects the entire Bay Area. So there's panic, there's nervousness, there's fear, there's injury. I mean, who's going to take the lead in that?
I don't think you're ever going to mitigate against all of those things. And I don't see a whole lot of difference between a terrorist attack like that and a 1906 redo here, because you're talking about an earthquake that hit in a 119-mile radius or length of that.
Well, then it's interesting to know, how did they do it without all the technological communication devices we have and so on? In the end, does it come down to leadership?
I think it comes down to leadership, and I think it comes down to preparedness. One of the things that we're trying to do is to get everyone in the Bay Area to have a kit, to make a plan, and to get some form of training around CPR and first aid. When people are prepared, they feel calmer, they know what to do, they know what their family, their friends, their spouse is going to be, where they're going to be. That's really critical. There's no way, I'll give you for instance, if 1906 happens again, we're estimating that about 3,400 people are going to die, about 63,000 people are going to be injured, and 400,000 people are going to be left homeless. And
from
about
the fire.
15, well, from just maybe the collapsing of our soft story earthquake, the buildings that we have throughout the San Francisco area.
400,000 homeless.
400,000 homeless within about a minute.
Okay, now.
So whether it's terrorists or whether it's
Well,
an earthquake,
it's
massive.
Point taken.
Yeah.
I had my relatives, and they talk about stories. Those that are still alive, you know, how they some went to Angel Island, some went to Sausalito. I mean, fishermen, everybody got their boats and so on. Yeah, you wonder whether or not, obviously that wasn't all organized beforehand. I don't think there was a plan because they hadn't had a major earthquake. People became creative.
Right.
Now, with that scenario you just created, what do you do? Who's in charge? Where do the people go?
Well, we're in charge of what we do as far as shelter, and the different governmental agencies will be in charge of what they do, and we're working very closely. That's why we're doing all these drills. Right now, there's a catastrophic plan that's under development, and the catastrophic plan is going after the big one.
Okay.
What happens when, if you overlay, as you well know, when you overlay all the transportation arteries in the San Francisco Bay Area with those maps that are put out by USGS where you see the 8 major faults that run under San Francisco, that's a spider web that's pretty scary.
Correct.
So you're not going to get here.
Give me some hope, give our viewers some hope. What is the plan and who has the plan?
The plan is being developed by the U.S., the FEMA, by the state government office in Sacramento. There are national plans, there are local plans, there are city plans. The Red Cross's primary plan is to have individuals prepare themselves. Although we're integrating with the national plans, one of the things that we've looked at in the last scenario that we developed is what happened in 1906 is people will go to open space. So Golden Gate Park again will probably become a huge tent shelter. Most of the parks within San Francisco Bay Area will become shelters. Where else are you going to put 400,000 people?
Are tents in place?
That's one of the things that we're doing under the catastrophic plan is we're putting, the plan is to put containers all over the Bay Area that will have cots and tents and food supplies so that people can get to them if they can't have the shipments coming in. One of the things we do have in our favor here is the ferry system. So we will be able to get throughout the San Francisco Bay Area through our ferry system if a lot of our roads go down.
Will they be also using, for example, Angel Island and people leaving the city with the 400,000 homeless? You think that they all can be held in parks and so on? And how long will that happen?
No, and I think that's why you're looking at every different kind of number and scenario to say what's the maximum we can do. 400,000 is an enormous amount of people. A lot of those people hopefully will be able to get out of the city and find shelter with friends and families or motels or something outside of the area. What happens if those 400,000 people have to stay in San Francisco because our major arteries are down? That's really the scary scenario. That's when you get into the shelter in place. That's when literally you should have a tent in your survival kit, in your disaster kit that you could put up in your backyard, and you and your household should shelter in place in your backyard.
Is that what you're advocating now?
Absolutely.
And
we're advocating to get prepared for any kind of emergency to the best of people's ability.
And of course, we're talking now about that next phase, which is the most dangerous phase, and it was true even for the tsunami. The first wave, the first few hours are terrible. It's the long term. Look, keep doing what you're doing. I think we've had an honest and healthy discussion here, and I hope it makes a difference.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much, Art.
Bruce Burtch from the Red Cross, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. For program schedules, post-production notes, and free streaming video of select interviews, visit our website at www.sfunscripted.com.